In the past, pursuing fines meant a mountain of paperwork for the State Rail Authority. Tickets were sent to Sydney to be assessed, then sent back to Newcastle, and alleged offenders were then summoned to appear in court. In many instances, the severity of the offence did not justify the amount of time, effort and red tape involved. The new system operates much like a parking infringement. The fines are issued on the spot for a number of offences witnessed by a State Rail employee. Penalties include a $50 fine for failing to buy a ticket, entering or leaving a carriage while the train is moving, and using an old ticket. Travelling with your feet on the seat can cost $30. The on-the-spot fines must be paid within 3 weeks.
It will be all hands on deck over the Easter period for police in the Newcastle region. In an operation facetiously called Operation Big Ears, there will be a major clampdown on speeding, drink driving, on people not wearing safety belts and on children not secured in proper child restraints. Operation Big Ears might sound funny, but it's got serious consequences for drivers. Most of the drivers that were pulled over here received fines of between $50 and $100. And over the Easter weekend, similar fines will be dished out in their hundreds. And that's for speeding alone. People who drink and drive could find themselves before a magistrate and could be disqualified from driving. According to Senior Sergeant Terry Devonshire, it's all designed to reduce the carnage on the roads.
It's our aim to reduce the incident of crashes, fatal crashes and injury crashes.
He denies emphatically that speeding stations will be located at sites designed to catch the most cars rather than in danger zones.
The speed patrols, which will be assisted by the radar operations, will be placed in locations that have a high incident of injury-related crashes, on lots of occasions on dual-lane highways, and the main thing that we're interested in is presenting a high profile with the hope that this high profile will reduce the speed of the average motorist.
And how about drink driving? Will that be?
The school bell first sounded on the William Street site on April the 1st, 1858. Celebrations took place today because tomorrow is Good Friday. On that day 130 years ago, 57 pupils lined up to march into class. Through the years, the enrolment rose to 900 before the pressure was taken off by the new Metford School and expansion at Tenants. Today, the roll call covers 650 names. The day included a display of memorabilia from the bushranging days, including rare photographs, documents and particularly weapons of that period.
Yeah.
Coalition will make.
This week's special guest is the new Premier of New South Wales, Nick Greiner. He was swept to power in the state election in no small measure through the support he gained in traditional Hunter Valley Labor electorates. Can he keep those election promises? And a special performance by one of the world's most acclaimed musicians. Here's Simon Preston as he plays the music he chose for Prince Andrew's marriage to Fergie.
An incorrectly installed combustion stove or heater can have devastating results. According to New Zealand Insurance, house fires involving those appliances have risen by 500% in the past 3 years.
A number of people have actually installed them themselves. And some of those that were installed some years ago, it's an appropriate time for the property owner to really have an inspection of their property and look to see whether there's any early warning signs that there are any defects in the installation.
In some cases, the flue is installed so it's in direct contact with wooden roof supports.
It will drain the moisture out of the timber and you'll see signs of scarring or burning appearing on the wooden supports.
So this sort of thing isn't obviously apparent from the start?
It might take 3 weeks, it might take 3 years, depends on the installation.
Homeowners with combustion heaters and stoves are advised to remove any build-up of creosote, the result of unburned gases. They should also check for burn marks where the flue comes into contact with the house, as damaged timbers can suddenly burst into flames.
Didn't take long for the Eels
Brisbane skipper and Australian captain Wally is expected to add thousands to the crowd at this weekend's game, a fact which hasn't been ignored by the Knights. Tomorrow the Supporters Club will launch their secret weapon, which could also become the trend in Newcastle fashion wear at Bronco games, Wally Buster t-shirts. 400 of the specially designed shirts are being prepared for the supporters. This afternoon the first of the Wally Busters were test worn by Knights office workers. Marketing manager Lee Morn says the idea is a first.
I don't know of any Sydney club that's put out a special promotional type t-shirt. I've seen certainly club t-shirts around over the years, but this Wally Buster t-shirt's something quite different, and of course it fits with the modern theme of...
Is it just a novelty or is it actually a...
It's a money-making thing for the Supporters Club, of course. We've got a Supporters Club that's been going in now 6 or 7 weeks and has 800 odd members already. So it's an excellent opportunity for the Supporters Club to make themselves an extra dollar to support the Knights and also have a lot of fun with the new t-shirt.
So you think Wally's going to be a fairly big draw card for this one?
Adam John Ralph disappeared from his home on Harlow Street, Belmont North at 5 o'clock yesterday morning. Detectives believe there is more to the case than a simple runaway.
On that particular day, yesterday, he was aware that he and his family were travelling to Sydney to see their grandmother.
Adam Ralph wasn't the only person to go missing that morning. 47-year-old Maxwell Roy Green of Belmont North was last seen at his home at 5 o'clock on the same day. Police are trying to locate Green's car, a 1971 Holden Tirana similar to this.
The $1.5 million Bicentennial project took 2 years to build, bringing communities together in the process. However, it now threatens to divide them as parties vie for its permanent address. For several months, the ship is tied up at a dock in Wharf Road, but the operators say this is far from adequate. They say the wharf area has little space for car parking, no capacity for coal storage and loading, and only a temporary site office. The William IV is still $300,000 in the red, and the operators say they can't afford to upgrade the facilities. Publicity officer Deanne Squires says they are now consulting the 4 councils who lay some claim to the vessel: Maitland, Raymond Terrace, Newcastle and Lake Macquarie. Although adamant that there is no plan to move the boat yet, Deanne Squires admits an offer from Lake Macquarie City Council and the Gordon Pacific Development Group is attractive.
Lake Macquarie Council did offer us a permanent home base with corporate sponsorship, a possibility of corporate sponsorship.
The Lord Mayor of Newcastle, John McNaughton, however, says the ship belongs in the port of Newcastle and that is where it should stay.
It belongs in the river system. That's where it belongs. That's part of the reason for it being a bicentennial project.
The Lord Mayor says the council has contributed to the project as much as it could.
There's an enormous amount of help being given to the project by the council of the City of Newcastle, and that will continue. They have a berth. It's been arranged for them to be at the berth where the ferries now ply from when they go to Queen's Wharf. I don't think we need to do any more.
In tonight's news at 6, Tomorrow night's Panasonic Rugby League clash between the Knights and Manly has been transferred from the ISC to the Parramatta Stadium. A home game would have been a big advantage to Newcastle, which will be virtually taking on a reserve-grade strength Manly.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6.
Good afternoon, I'm Ross Hampton. History lessons in a metalwork room. Not a case of a new educational format, simply a case of nowhere else to go for students at Glendale High School. Today, teachers said enough is enough.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6.
Williamtown Airport came under the spotlight earlier this week when member for Swansea, Ivan Welsh, announced he would be pushing for it to be upgraded to international standards. That proposal received support today from the New South Wales-based Gordon Pacific Development Group. Executive Chairman of the company, Noel Gordon, says he will be mounting a strong campaign to have Williamtown adopted as an international gateway to Sydney. While admitting that the upgrading also would benefit the proposed Caves Beach Resort, Mr Gordon claims an upgraded airport is long overdue for Newcastle. He also believes if the Gordon Pacific Resort goes ahead, it will assist Newcastle's attempt to procure the airport. Mr Gordon says he will approach the relevant federal and state ministers for discussions on the subject.
With work on the roundabout expected to start in just a few months, resident protests are becoming louder and stronger. Last night's meeting at Toronto Community Hall allowed DMR, council and police officials to hear public reaction and to answer their questions. However, residents had clearly made up their minds. They fear the roundabout isn't safe for traffic or pedestrians, and they believe it's going to affect business in the boulevard. They say a study prepared 4 years ago raised doubts about the roundabout and proposed traffic lights and turn phases instead. The DMR is adamant that the roundabout meets traffic requirements. Community spokesman Bill Jones says public feeling can sway
not necessarily
the
with a roundabout. We still have great optimism that our view will prevail for many reasons, but not least of all is the safety aspect.
DMR officials declined to be interviewed during the meeting.
Game today, the final tackle, Robbie Chew with a little kick behind the defence.
The weekend's top sports action, including the Knights North Sydney Rugby League clash and the NBL match between the Falcons and Illawarra set down to the Broadmeadow Stadium tomorrow night.
Join us tonight at 6.
Newcastle University Vice-Chancellor Professor Keith Morgan today announced that he favours the amalgamation of the Hunter Institute with the university. The University Council will consider the proposal when it meets next Friday.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6.
According to Louise Wild, the Hunter Tenants Advice and Housing Referral Service receives 200 inquiries a month from dissatisfied tenants. She believes some landlords and agents are taking advantage of the difficult situation.
The rental accommodation is based on a supply and demand factor, and when there is as now a greater demand for accommodation, of course the rents are going to increase. The properties may not be worth as much, but because there is a short supply of properties, real estate agents and landlords can basically charge what they want and they can get it.
She says there is little tenants can do to have their homes upgraded. She says the local council can be contacted if building faults constitute health risks, but by doing that, tenants risk eviction. Ms Wild is concerned about the reasons for rent increases in the Newcastle area.
I feel that there's been some misinformation spread about the rent prices. The Real Estate Institute have published an article that rents have gone up to $170 a week for a 3-bedroom home. 2 weeks later, the Hunter Valley Research Foundation said that rents were about $130, and that has the effect of a lot of landlords seeing the Real Estate Institute information, they're the experts, and thinking, well, I'm only getting $110, I should increase my rent to that level. And that creates an effect that the rents just keep increasing.
And you think that's why people are paying more for properties? University Vice-Chancellor Professor Keith Morgan clearly hopes the University Council will support the amalgamation proposal. As far as the university's official position is concerned, the final decision rests with the Council.
If the institutions are amalgamated, what type of institution will we have?
I think we shall have a university that's well equipped to continue its growth and development for the rest of this century and into the future, and an institution which will provide good and improved quality of service for people in Newcastle and the Hunter region.
Responding to the announcement, Hunter Institute Principal Dr Doug Huxley agrees if amalgamated, the institutions should become a university, but says the new institution should offer more than currently offered. Dr Huxley also welcomes Professor Morgan's views because he says the professor recognises the potential for overall gain for both institutions. Dr Huxley says if all the benefits of amalgamation mentioned in the government's green paper can be demonstrated, then Hunter Institute students, staff and council members may also favour it. Meanwhile, Professor Morgan today answered questions regarding any possible changes to staffing levels should amalgamation go ahead.
The institution is actually looking forward to a period of intensive growth. If we are going to meet the government's suggestions, we're going to grow by something in the region of 30 to 50% between now and the end of the century. This will require more staff, not less staff.
Professor Morgan has asked the University Council to enable discussions regarding amalgamation to begin with the Institute and Commonwealth and state authorities. He has also asked that the discussions be reported on at the next meeting of Council. Professor Morgan says the issue of amalgamation was last raised in 1981. At that time, he says, the government's view of amalgamation was for financial savings. That move was resisted. But now he says the amalgamation view is designed to strengthen and develop higher education.
Eleven men are being held in Hong Kong
11
where the drug
people
ring
are
is
being
based.
held in Hong
The
Kong where the drug ring is
lords out to
based.
build a heroin
Authorities
smuggling
claim
network
the
for
Hong
Washington
Kong
and
drug
New York
lords were duped into forming a partnership with a Chinese-speaking FBI agent.
kingpin.
They say $140 million worth of heroin has been seized. Customs agents have also seized dozens of guns, including automatic weapons the Asian gang was selling. Meanwhile, drug agents are still sorting out more than a tonne of cocaine seized overnight in Miami. The drugs were hidden in 1,200 buckets of frozen fruit juice. Meanwhile, Italian police are searching for a Japanese terrorist they suspect carried out a car bomb attack which killed 5 people. Junzo Okudara of the Japanese Red Army is the prime suspect, but it's thought he may have already slipped out of Italy. In Algeria, the hijack drama continues into its 12th day. Meetings yesterday don't appear to have produced a breakthrough. A Kuwaiti news agency has linked Iran with the hijacking. A terrified hostage has pleaded with authorities to bow to his captor's demands, saying they will kill everyone if their wishes aren't granted. Meanwhile, British movie buffs are mourning the death of comedy actor Kenneth Williams. The 62-year-old star will be remembered for his performances in many films, including 28 Carry On comedies.
Oh, it's good, yes, very good. A pretty little thing. Where did we capture her?
At the settlement they call Bristol, sir.
Oh, yes, I might have guessed.
All sorts of rumours have been doing the rounds since the New South Wales government appointed Major General Ron Gray to study the future of the state's rescue and emergency services. Mr Gray, a former commissioner of the Australian Federal Police, today met 60 representatives from the Hunters Rescue Services at the Newcastle Police Station. Delegates presented Mr Gray with submissions on the directions they believe the services should head. Under current legislation, all control and coordination of emergencies is handled by police. The Hunter is in a unique situation in that it has a coordinated rescue response plan. No matter where an emergency arises, there is a plan of action, which according to police is the most advanced and successful in the state. The state government is not expected to decide what it will do with the rescue services for some time. One possibility is that it may model the rest of the state on the Hunters emergency and rescue system.
Teams vying for the Ironbark Creek Canoe Challenge were undeterred by today's overcast conditions. They arrived in an array of costumes, all ready to compete in what can only be described as a quite bizarre event. First off were the Wetlands Wonder Women, who'd been practising for some time and were eager to put their newfound skills into action. Competitors were given a sheet of questions which they had to try and answer on the way, and some were not that easy. Tasks included describing the mating call of a frog that lives on one of the islands and naming a weed that they pass on the way. All riveting stuff designed to test the minds of our epic adventurers. Overall, 20 teams competed this year, and according to Kevin Markwell, himself looking like something out of Brideshead Revisited, it's hoped the event will really take off in the future.
The big prize is the Ironbark Creek Shield, which is just a wonderful sort of looking shield. The New York Yacht Club has expressed considerable interest in the design, and we're going to probably need to bolt it down on a table in the Wetland Centre. It will be that prestigious to win.